Hello, welcome back to Kim Reese as we continue with Felicity's surprise. Chapter 5, The Season for Surprises. Felicity leaned forward so that the sleet would not sting her face. She had been a long afternoon of errands and was scurrying home from her last stop at the apothecary shop with more medicine for her mother. She was buried so deep in her hood, she jumped when she heard a coachman call out, "Stand away, missy!" She stepped back just in time. Muddy-legged horses trotted by, pulling a carriage through a puddle right in front of her. The wheels of the carriage splashed her petticoat with slush. The carriage hastened on, headed toward the palace. Suddenly, Felicity remembered. Today is January 7th, the day of the dance lesson at the palace. Felicity shivered. She headed home. Cold, wet, and miserable. Felicity hung up her cloak and slipped off her muddy shoes. Her father beckoned her in the parlor. "Come here, Felicity," he said softly. Felicity's heart thudded. "What is it, father?" she asked. "Is mother all right?" Mr. Merriman smiled. "Come see for yourself," he said. Felicity looked behind him. "Mother!" she asked. Mrs. Merriman was propped comfortably up in the big chair next to the fire, cocooned in pillows and blankets. Nan, William, and Ben stood around her. She smiled and opened her arms to Felicity. Felicity ran to her mother and hugged her gently. "Oh, Mother," she said. "Oh, I'm so glad." Felicity wanted to stay in the circle of her mother's arms forever. "The fever is gone," said Father. "Her cough is still bad and she is very weak, but at least she is starting to get better." "I am indeed, thanks to you, Lissy, my good nurse," said Mother. Her voice was hoarse but full of happiness. "You've taken good care of me. Father tells me you've taken good care of William and Nan, too." Thank you, my dear girl." "We must make new decorations for you, Mother," said Nan. "Lissy did most of the work, but William and I helped too." "The parlor looks beautiful," said Mrs. Merriman. "It makes me feel better just to see all the lovely, fresh greenery. What a nice surprise. You truly are my Christmas sprites." She smiled at Felicity. "Perhaps we could all have a cup of chocolate to celebrate." "Certainly, my dear," said Mr. Merriman. "I'll take the chocolate," said Felicity. "First you must go and change your clothes," said Mr. Merriman. "You are wet through the skin. We mustn't have you fall sick. Go along now." Felicity shrugged her mother once more, and then turned and picked up the chamber stick to light her way up the stairs. Mother is better, her heart sang. Felicity felt as if her dearest wish had come true. The cold fear had haunted her melted into happiness and relief. "Mother's going to be all right. She really and truly will be all right." Felicity reached the door of her room. She stood stock still. She could not believe her eyes. The beautiful blue gown was spread on her bed, glowing in the light of her candle. Every stitch was perfectly stitched. Was it magic? Felicity touched it to make sure it was real. The blue silk was smooth and soft as a sigh, but it was very real. How could this be? Felicity wondered. Who could finish the gown? Then she noticed the pretty doll in its matching blue bouncing on the pillow. The dolls were bright, and she looked even more cheery and pleased than she looked with herself. Elizabeth gasped Felicity. Could she have done it? "Oh, Elizabeth, thank you," Felicity thought. Carefully, Felicity lifted the gown in her arms and hurried out to the parlor where her Emily and Beth were still gathered. Mother sat forward in a chair. "Felicity," she said, "you have your gown. Your heavenly blue gown. Did you finish it?" "No," said Felicity. "Elizabeth must have." Felicity held the gown against her and swirled around. The blue gowns glowed in the light of the fire and brightened the parlor. "Isn't it the prettiest gown you've ever seen?" "Aye," said Mrs. Merriman. "It is." Mr. Merriman smiled sadly. "I'm sorry you can't show off your gown as it deserves. I know this is the day of the dance lesson, but I don't know how you can be properly taken to the palace. Rosie isn't home, and I cannot leave your mother. You can not possibly arrive alone, and there is no one else to escort you." "I understand," said Felicity quietly. A shadow of sadness crossed Mrs. Merriman's face. She reached out to stroke the glorious blue silk of Felicity's gown. Suddenly, Ben spoke up. "I'll do it," he said. "I'll escort Felicity to the palace." Felicity stared at Ben. "But Ben," I thought you... She was too confused and happy to go on. Mr. Merriman laughed and nodded at Ben with a pleased expression. Good lad, he said. He turned to Felicity. You had better hurry and get ready, Lucy, my dear. 'Tis already nearly 4. Ben was halfway out the door. I'll get the riding chair ready and bring you around front. Mrs. Merriman's cheeks were pink with excitement. Edward, she said to Mr. Merriman, please bring the bathtub and some buckets of hot water from the kitchen. Lizzie must have a bath. William, fetch some of my various soap and linen cloth. Nan, bring me a hairbrush. Make haste. We must get Lizzie ready to go to the palace. Before Felicity knew it, she was scrubbed clean. Her skin glowed pink and smelled of roses. Nan brushed her hair till it was smooth and shiny and copper. As if in a dream, Felicity slipped in the blue silk over her head. It fit perfectly. Felicity never felt so beautiful in her life. Her hands shook a little as she tied the blue cord around her neck. Mother studied her with a loving eye. Nan, she said, run and fetch one of my best pearl earrings from the case in my drawer. Nan hurried to her mother's room and was soon back with the earring. Mother fastened the earring on the blue silk cord around Felicity's neck. There, said Mother, there. She sank back into the pillows looking pleased and proud. Now you look perfect. Off you two go. Felicity gave her mother one last tug, then pulled on her cloak and rushed outside to meet Ben. It was still sleeting, and the roads were rutted and slippery, but Ben hurried old Bess along and pulled her up to the palace gates in no time. Felicity held tight to Ben's hand as she helped her down from the riding chair. She felt rather small when she looked up at the tall iron gates in the wall around the palace. Tonight the gates were wide open. Inside, a row of lanterns lit the path up the palace doors. At the door, Ben gave her a squeeze. Thank you, Ben, he whispered. Ben grinned and disappeared behind her. Felicity held her breath as she was shown the palace entry hall by a footman. The entry hall was big and a little scary. The entry hall was big and the walls and even the ceiling were covered with fierce-looking swords, pistols, and muskets glistening in the sunlight. Another footman took her wet cloak. On wobbly legs, Felicity walked the length of the ballroom. A very elegant lady and gentleman stood at the far end under the huge portraits of the king and queen. Felicity's heart thumped when she realized that must be Lord and Lady Dunmore. She sang into a blue cloud of silk as she made her curtsy. My lord, my lady, she murmured just as she and Elizabeth had practiced so many times. I have the honor to be Miss Felicity Merriman. Miss Merriman, said Lady Dunmore, how charming. We are so glad you joined the others. I believe they are about to begin the lesson. Thank you, said Felicity as she rose. The ballroom was a dazzling blue. Felicity's eyes opened wide in amazement. She had never seen such a huge room in her life. It was lit with dozens of candles glittering in chandeliers. Oh, if only Mother could see this, she thought. The room was full of young gentlemen dressed in bright blue silk breeches and coats decorated with golden braid and a row of buttons. Young ladies blossomed like flowers in brocades and taffetas, silks and velvets of every color. Ah, but my gown is the loveliest, thought Felicity happily. Felicity looked around the room. At last she caught sight of Elizabeth and hurried toward her. Just as she reached her friend, the music began. Felicity found herself a part of a set of dancers. Elizabeth beamed at her, but they had no chance to talk, for they were soon swept up in the music and dancing. The dance master called out the dances. Felicity knew she better pay close attention. She did not want to make any mistakes. The blue gown worked its magic. As the dance lesson went on, Felicity felt more and more at ease. She did not trip or step on anyone's toes. In fact, she began to enjoy the dances. The blue gown seemed to help her swoop and swirl and stay light on her feet. Why, dancing is fun, she thought with surprise. And when dancing was over, the young gentlemen were to take refreshments to the supper room. Felicity had never seen such elegant food. There were towers of sweetmeats and sugared fruits. There were plates of cakes and tarts, bowls of punch and platters of jellies across the long table. It all seemed too beautiful to eat, and Felicity was too excited to be hungry. Besides, she couldn't wait to talk to Elizabeth. Elizabeth, she called. She hurried over to her friend through the throng of people. You did it, didn't you? She held out her skirts and twirled. You finished my gown. But how'd you ever do it? Elizabeth smiled and smiled. My mother did the hardest parts, but I helped her. You and Annabelle helped, she said. It looks beautiful, doesn't it? Felicity smoothed the blue skirts and looked at Annabelle. How can I ever thank your mother and Annabelle? She said. Oh, Elizabeth, you kept hoping I'd never, even after I'd given up. No, never a better friend than you. You have another good friend, Elizabeth said with a grin. Ben helped me. He sneaked the gown out of your house and then back in again. Ben? Asked Felicity, but he thought the gown was foolish, and he thought it was wrong for me to go to the palace. How did you change his mind? Elizabeth shrugged happily. I just asked him to help. Did you ask Ben to escort me here tonight? Asked Felicity. No, smiled Elizabeth, but I'm glad he did. I am, sighed Felicity happily. I am too. When the dance lesson was over, the girls said their thank yous and their good nights. Felicity wrapped herself in her cloak as she stepped outside the palace. It was all the beauty from the ballroom had spilled into the night. A fine, cool white powdering of snow had come silently, making the world sparkle. Now the clouds were clearing. For the first in a long time, Felicity could look up at the stars. The moon lit the clouds from behind so that they were outlined in silver. Ben was waiting for Felicity outside the palace gate. She climbed into the writing chair and sat next to him. They rode in silence for a while, and then Felicity said, Ben, it was kind of you to help Elizabeth, and it was kind of you to escort me to the palace. What made you change your mind? A wonderful smile lit up Ben's face. You did, he said. I watched you take care of her mother. I saw how you cheered Nan and William, even though all the things you had hoped for looked impossible. I began to think your father was right. Christmas is the time when our hopes for peace and happiness should come true. I wanted to help your hopes come true, too. Thank you, Ben, said Felicity. They rode home together in the silvery night. And that is the end of Felicity's Surprise. Thanks for listening.